Some of us got lucky, some of us got fame, some of us are standing here with one foot in the grave. We were the kings of power pop. We were the kings of power, the kings of power, the kings of power pop. Power pop, power pop.
Hello, this is Aaron at Popaholic, and today I am talking with the king of power pop, Paul Collins. How are you doing today, Paul?
Very good, and happy to be here and on the show. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Let me ask, because one of the reasons I'm calling is you have a huge fest coming in about a week or two called Power Popalicious 2, and I know you had this last year in Jersey. Tell me a little bit about how you started this whole event and how it's going to be different.
Well, you know, I relocated back to New York about, I guess 2008, and I had been living overseas and working pretty much overseas, and then I slowly started to work again in the United States. I did South by Southwest a couple of years, which was really good for me, and I met a lot of the new and up-and-coming bands that are playing this kind of music. I met at the South by Southwest Festival, and then we did the Wild Weekend Fest in Austin. After that, I hooked up with Gentleman Jesse out of Atlanta, and we did a tour. That tour was very instrumental for me because I saw how there really was this whole new scene happening in the United States and the clubs with all these new bands, and they were all connecting via the internet and blogs and stuff, and there was just this whole subculture going on that was a world of its own. And that's when I started touring heavily again here in the States, and I toured with Gentleman Jesse, I toured with King Louie, I toured with bands out on the West Coast, bands in Chicago, and the first Power Popalicious Fest, which was in Asbury Park, it actually was 2011. This year's fest was supposed to be 2012, but because of the storm and stuff, we had to push it back.
Right.
And that year's fest had 18 bands, and I had been doing all this touring, and I'd been playing with all these great bands. I said, wouldn't it be awesome to put a show on with all of these guys, because they had become friends of mine, guys and gals, because there were women involved. And so that's how the first Power Popalicious Fest was born. And it really was extraordinary in the sense that we had bands coming, from all over the place, from Canada, from Birmingham, from down south, Chicago, and they were all bands that had become really good friends of mine. Wow. And then, it's like you do this yourself, organizing a fest is a ton of work, and getting in touch with everybody and getting everybody to answer their emails and stuff, and all the nerve-wracking stuff that, to try to pull it off and get everybody to show up and play.
Sure. I've been doing it myself. I don't know if you're familiar, but I had my own festival last September, Power Popaholic Fest in Port Jefferson.
Yes, I was very aware of that.
Yes. And I found getting the word out and the PR were really my biggest challenges. The bands in the venue all cooperated quite beautifully. What challenges did you face with Power Popalicious?
Well, I had the same experience. In the end, everybody really pulled together. We did it at Asbury Lanes, which is an incredible venue, and I wanted to do it there because I had played there, and I thought, this is the place to do that. We got a deal with the hotel down the street, and it was very, the first of anything, the first album, the first festival, the first whatever. They're always very special because of all the stuff that happens in the night.
Yeah.
And it was really great, and it was a great party, and I think a lot of associations came out of it, which I'm very proud about. I've seen bands subsequently go on tour with each other, and a lot of connections were made, which was also, the thing I was hoping to see happen. And then we got ready to do it again, and obviously when they needed some time to just forget about it because it's such a work.
Right.
And then when I said, okay, we got to do the fest again, what are we going to do this time out? We can't repeat the bands, even though we could have, because more people would come and more people would see these bands. It just didn't seem right. And then I had been touring a lot but I hadn't come across, just because of the nature of the touring I was doing, that many new bands I could say, all right, I'm going to pull all these guys in this time. So it was like, kind of like, well, what do I do? What do I do? And then all of a sudden, I just like, started getting into it, and I started meeting a lot of bands from around here.
Right.
There were a handful of bands that from out of state that like the Magnolias, and I'm really sorry that some of these bands aren't getting to come to play, because when we postponed it, it was just too much to organize getting everybody back.
Right.
Out of state bands. But Pat Kern's band, which is Black Hearts for, was it Blue Hearts for, it's kind of a long name and I can never remember. But there was a handful of bands that I was really excited to present, and even a band that I had worked with many, many years ago when I did the Pop Matters CD,
right.
Jennifers, who were a band from Baltimore. And I had it all lined up, and then, of course, the storm hit, and it was like, forget it. There's no way to even try to pull this off. I mean,
the International Pop Overthrow Fest, was canceled as well and moved into the spring as well. So you're not alone there. I don't think anyone holds you to that.
Obviously this area was hit so hard, and people were and still, unfortunately, there are people that are still trying to recover from it, and it just didn't make any sense.
Right.
And then it was like, okay, let's postpone it, because I spoke to Janet Delane, who's a dear friend, and she was like, well, we're not destroyed, but we don't know what we're going to do. There's a lot of damage here. We have to figure everything out, and I can't, commit to a date or anything. And I was like, well, what do we do? Just like postpone it as a way of saying let's cancel it, and just because it's kind of like it's a lot of work to get everything to line up, that all the bands are free at the same time, they're all free in the same weekend, and they're the bands you want to present, et cetera, et cetera. And then it just kind of like all fell into place when because I've been going to the Cake Shop quite a bit,
right.
And Andy, the man who manages it, runs it, and books it, is always saying, come on, Paul, man, we got to put together a show down here. And then I was just like, yeah, let's do it at the Cake Shop, and which is a great venue, a venue with a real history to it, a venue that people know and love, and a venue that presents this kind of music anyway. In fact, one of the bands, the Psycho Hippies, I was going to see some other band, and they were playing, and I fell in love with them.
Wow.
And so it just all made sense. And also logistically, when we decided to put it on in Manhattan, it became, so much easier.
Sure. It's a central spot.
We still have the cachet of presenting bands. They're not all local bands. There's two bands from Canada coming that are fantastic, the Powwows and Kid Sentiment. Kurt Baker and The Connection are coming down from Portland.
Oh.
We're getting a rare performance from the Modulators, who are a great New Jersey band who very rarely play. And then we're keeping the same spirit as we're presenting a lot of new and up-and-coming bands. And I'm just really, really happy that I can be involved in doing this, because to me, I see very clearly now, especially after the last couple of years of touring.
Yeah, and I was
the future of rock and roll, and it's with these young bands.
Awesome. And I was going to get to the touring. You had a very short-lived reunion of the Nerves earlier in 2012, and mid-tour there was, it kind of didn't end that well. You kind of got cut off short, with disagreements with Peter Case and the band. Yeah, blew up. I mean,
it exploded, baby.
Yeah. Just as a postscript to that, I mean, are you talking to Peter now, or you guys are are you enemies? I mean, or you just determined, well, we'll stay friends, but we can't play together anymore?
Well, let's see. Which one of those can we pick out of the old hat? It was an experiment that failed, unfortunately. And I'm glad you didn't ask me that question like 2 weeks after, because, it was...
well, it was still raw at that point.
It was still raw. That's a good word. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just... I'll tell you, when I got done with that, I realized, without saying anything about anybody else, I know where I want to be, and this DIY shows with all these bands. Most of them are young. Some of them are older. They've all become friends. The clubs, the guys who book the clubs and the places we go, they're buddies too. And it's just like you pick up the phone or you get online, you Facebook or you email, and you can put together a tour. And it's really great. And it's like a big extended family. I'm about to do a nice size Midwest tour starting in February, right after the Power Pop Fest. And we're doing 11 shows. We're playing with 13 different young new bands.
Nice. Everything
from like the Sugar Stems and Trolley in Milwaukee to the Boss Mustangs in Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids to just, you know, all these different bands, regional and local bands. And we're going to a few new territories that we've never been to. We're going to Fargo and Iowa City and Des Moines and Springfield, Illinois. And this is where I belong, and this is where I operate. And when I get out of that stuff, you know, there was this thing about that tour, you know, that we were going to cash in on our previous work, which we were entitled to. But it just, I don't know, the whole thing, it just got out of control.
Yeah.
And these tours that I do, they're really down to earth. They're you know, we just go out there, we make enough money that everybody, you know, that we can all put some bucks in your pockets. I make my living doing it, but it's very modest and it's really down to earth. And it's really like family oriented. Most of the people that I deal with now, I mean, a lot of times we stay at people's houses. We know where they're friends. I know the bed I'm going to be in or the couch I'm going to be on, and it's really nice. And it's also very comfortable.
Yeah, I just love that you've become this huge power pop advocate over the past 5 years, and it's great to have a passionate spokesperson for this genre. I mean, do you ever run into like resistance from the news media and who don't consider power pop a serious genre, or they kind of look at it like, well, what's that, you know, or they just don't know how to cover it?
You know, I did this tour opening up for the English Beat, which was not anything of what I just described to you. That was like the big look. It was booked by the agency group out of Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. We're playing big venues, theaters and stuff, which was all very cool. But I did a lot of press, and the press was like, they didn't know who the hell I was, or they had an inkling of who I was. But Power Pop, they had no idea of what it was. And I would be asked, well, what is Power Pop? And in the course of doing that, I realized, and my answer became, Power Pop embodies the elements of everything that you love about great rock and roll music. Good songs, great guitar hooks, and great harmonies.
Absolutely.
And that is present in every great rock and roll music genre that you can talk about. From the Beatles to Chuck Berry to the Sex Pistols to, you know, whatever genre, whatever band, what do they have? Great songs, great vocals, and great guitar bits.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Your
power pop is, I think the thing about power pop, and you know, when the word first came out when I was 18 or 22, I hated it. It was like, what the hell is this, power pop? No, we play rock and roll. What are you trying to tell us? We played power pop. It sounded like, you know, we were wimpy or something. But now, 25, 30 some odd years later, and there's no doubt, there can be no doubt in anybody's mind that power pop is here to stay. It's already going into its second generation. If it was going to disappear, it would have already disappeared. So it's here to stay. And the thing is that power pop, like any other genre of rock and roll, and it's a legitimate genre, it is a subgenre. It does need people to advocate for it because, which is cool. I mean, it's like cool to be like, now we're talking about this hip, you know, those who know type know genre.
Right.
But, and the power pop today is not the same as it was 25 years ago when I started. And it doesn't need to be, and it doesn't have to be. Like all genres of rock and roll, the thing that they have in common is that they're elastic. That's why rock and roll is so great. But rock and roll does encompass everything from Little Richard to the Sex Pistols or more contemporary groups that I don't know because, you know,
right.
Where I came from. But it is elastic. And so the bands today, when I promote power pop, to me, it's melodically driven, guitar-oriented music. Any band that plays songs and uses guitars to get their point across is fair game for me in the sense of in this subgenre. So that means there can be bands that are kind of garagey, there can be bands that are kind of punky, there can be bands that are more melodic and pretty. I will not like say, okay, well, if you're not like fit, like totally into this hardened the course mold of what power pop is, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I think that's a mistake. The kids today listen to a lot of different music. I play with bands like, you know, I don't know, the Amoebas or the Half Rats, or, you know, I play with some of these bands. But,
no,
you know,
I get the idea. Some are
melodic, some are less melodic. But, you know, hey, it's cool. They're all out there trying to, and this festival is a good example of that. If you come to the 2 shows and you see the 10 bands, you're not going to see 10 bands doing the same thing. And
absolutely. And just as a follow-up, I know 2 years ago you had that great album, King of Power Pop, which was on my top 10 list. I'm wondering if you're planning another album at some point?
I am. It's just, it's always been hard to come up with, you know, 12 great songs that live up to what you know and what you think they need to live up to. In fact, that's one of the things I'm doing. I have some time off here at home in between tours, and I'm like, you know, pulling what little hair I have left out, trying to write great songs. And so I'm you know, knee deep in it. I'd say I'd probably on a good day I think I'm halfway there, and then I wake up and I start going through this stuff and I go, this is all crap. I got to start all over again. But I know I have a few good songs for the next record, and that's always been the huge challenge, and it was from day one with the Nerves. And I've been really, really lucky that the records that I've made, for the most part, I've put in enough hard work that each of them has something that with lasting value to it, and that is really difficult. That's my main challenge, is to come up with really good songs and to keep coming up with really good songs that more or less fit into this genre. That's why King of Power Pop was really important for me, because, you know, it was a record that kind of connected the dots from the Nerves to the present. And like any artist, you know, you go left, right, and center. You know, you get some records that are more like what everybody wants, and some records are like, okay, he's reflecting now, or whatever.
Right.
And that's a natural thing that songwriters have to go through. You're not going to write Rock and Roll Girl 12 times over and over for every record you make. I mean, if you did, you might be a millionaire, but it's not very creative.
Right. No, but that's great. I'm glad that you're on your way with that. And I wanted to thank you so much for this interview. It was awesome talking with you. And the Power Popalicious 2 Festival is on February 1st and 2nd at the Cake Shop in New York City. I can't wait to see you there, and look forward to it.
And thank you. And I know, you can tell I do a lot of interviews because I talk my butt off. But please plug some of these bands that are playing with us. They're all wonderful, and they deserve to be heard by your listeners and your fans.
Oh, definitely. Well, Kurt Baker's already, like, he was my number. I think it was my number 2 album for 2012. So I think very highly of Kurt.
Working man in show business. I love him.
Yes.
His attitude is just so fantastic.
And The Connection had my one of the top spots for the best EP of the year as well on my list. So some of these other bands.
I think I played one of their very, very first shows. We did together in Northampton, and I was totally blown away by them.
Yeah, they're incredible. And of course, I saw the Modulators at IPO the year before, so I know how good they are. I will get to know these bands that you have there, and I can't wait to see them. Thank you very much, Paul Collins. I appreciate the interview. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.